Happy Sunday. This is going to be days 27 through 29 because I've been really kind of struggling with this ocean map thing. And I haven't had any live guests to share with you, but I will later in the week. But anyway, um, with the mapping that I've been struggling with, there was the kind of question of how should we view the sectors and services in the ocean industry. And as I've been interviewing people through this process, we've been talking about how they view their place in these sectors and services of the ocean industry. And I started with a map like this, which is really touching a lot on the physical aspects of the ocean industry and the different geographical locations in which those physical assets might be found. And then I tried to break down the non-tangible assets in the industry and the other, things that affect the industry. And then that evolved, as you know, into adjacent industries and sectors, visible infrastructure, services, invisible forces, finance, and insurance. And that map looks a bit like this. So what I'm going to do is show you what that looks like in reality. So when I had been mapping it that way, it was looking a bit like this. So you had, adjacent industries, you had cargo owners that are the customers, third-party equipment providers, ballast treatment facilities, different ways to provide energy to the maritime industry. And then you had the physical assets, you had things that were transporters. And then, it broke it down to different kinds of tankers and then liquefied gas tankers, and then how those industry bodies related to those. But I felt like I was missing a lot. So I got a small research assistant, the Chat GPT that everyone's been talking about so much. Let me share my other screen. And with that tool over the last few days, I've been able to kind of make a more robust list of different segments and places and people. Well, not really people, but companies that act in the industry. And I'll share this link on my LinkedIn, and then I'll also share it on my webpage so that you're welcome to come in and view here. And I'll also maybe open it up to comments. So if you have comments here and you'd like to kind of contribute your thoughts, then you might be able to comment in it. But if it gets kind of crazy, I'll turn off the comments. But I have it so we can sort it by segments, from adjacent industries, classification societies, insurance, hull clubs, media and journals, which do affect the industry in some ways because they are influential, as we talked about with Holly, membership organizations, regulatory and governmental authorities, and service providers to the industry. So if you go through this, you have like classification societies. I don't think I have them all, but I have quite a few. And then insurers and hull clubs, media and journals, there's quite a few here that I found. And membership organizations, there's also quite a few. And as we had talked about before, there's some of them that are kind of disjointed and have trouble providing one voice for just their members and not necessarily one voice overall. So if you look at how many there are that I kind of easily found, or knew about, it's pretty extensive. And then we get into the regulatory and government part. And of course, I didn't list every country because that would be a little bit crazy, because there's even regulatory authorities and flag states for countries that have no sea border, which I always found funny. But they're here. And I have these notes, but most of them are generated by AI, and it's not a perfect research assistant. So you don't know if there might be errors, but just take that in mind when you're reading it, because I didn't write all of these myself. although I did do all the prompts. And then there's service providers to the ocean industry. There's quite a few also here, but it's only broken down into groups like shipbuilding and repair, and not necessarily further than that. Although I should list here with the shipbuilding and repair also the ship recycling and breaking yards, because that's not in here yet. But that's 122 bubbles that I now need to kind of map and figure out how they're interrelated. But I'm glad to have it before we go into the stakeholder session coming up, and we start to address each individual stakeholder in the maritime industry and their needs, because this map will get even more complex. So I'm also using this graphic tool to try and map this in a good visual way. But right now it's not showing the interconnections. It's just starting with bubbles. And I would love to make it clickable, but I don't know if I'm going to have time to do that much kind of linking of these things through a process to make it kind of a clickable prototype. But we'll see how it goes. Anyway, it's good practice for me to play with these tools, because I use them also at work. But this is my personal version. So it doesn't have all the cool features that I'm used to at work, and then I tried to get them and it doesn't work. I need to switch tabs because you can't see. Okay, didn't realize that. So this is also the graphic tool that I'm using to try and picture the industry. So to break things down by the physical assets, the different industry bodies. I'll probably break it down a little bit more than just industry bodies, because it seems a bit crazy. And now I have all that good descriptive material. I'd love to make them kind of clickable assets where you could get open and close menus and see what's there. But we'll see what I have time to. But it's good practice for me to learn anyway. Yeah, that's been the last 3 days. Quite a lot of like detailed work on my computer during my off time, but it's been really interesting, and I think it'll be really helpful for my work also, to kind of get a grasp on how big the industry actually is. And I hope you find it helpful too. And please comment on the big Google sheet of the segments, because I'm sure that there's things that I'm missing. Yeah. Happy Sunday.